Good evening. I am your host, Amenhotep Kufu El Ra, and this is the Royal House of Ra, which is a new YouTube channel dedicated to descendants of Pharaoh Ramses III of the 20th dynasty of ancient Kemet. And tonight is episode 1, the introduction to this channel. And I'm going to talk about some things on what the channel's about, um, and what will be discussed, and talk about future topics, talk about rules that needs to be followed with the channel as well. Excuse me. Now, the channel is, as I mentioned, the Royal House of Ra. And the Royal House of Ra is a modern dynasty in which I am head of that dynasty. And the surname of this royal house is Ra. And I am, as I mentioned, I'm the head. And I will be doing communications with other members of the dynasty and other descendants of Ramses III. And I would like the Kemetic community to be part of this and to support the Royal House of Ra and descendants of Ramses III in reviving the Kemetic principles, beliefs, belief spirituality systems, political system, economics, morality, physical conditioning, and unity. So let's get on today because today's show is the introduction. What I'm going to talk about now is what the channel is about, which I did give a brief introduction at the beginning of the opening of this show. The channel, as I mentioned before, is a channel dedicated to descendants of Ramses III. A new modern royal house has been created for the descendants of Ramses III, which is the Royal House of Ra. With this royal house, we are dedicated to uphold the principles of ancient Kemet and its foregone past and modernize it to the current present. And there are plans in motion to push Kemet and to push and establish a sovereign state, but that can be discussed at a later date. But as I stated before, I will be in communication with other descendants of Ramses III to establish the Royal House of Ra and to make it the center of Kemetic life, understanding, and unity. So, with this channel, we're going to discuss a lot of things involving the Royal House of Ra, its members, the rules and regulations that the members of the Royal House of Ra would have to acknowledge and respect and honor. We're going to be talking about the coat of arms, which that would be in episode 2, which I'm going to discuss about our family's coat of arms. And I'm going to break down the coat of arms to you. I'm going to show you what the coat of arms are, what the coat of arms look like, and break it down to layman terms where people can understand it. Also, I'm going to also discuss the Constitution of Kemet, which is a constitution that I have created, which have, I believe, 100 and, you know what, I can tell you right now. Give me a moment, please. I will tell you right now so you can get a pretty much understanding what the articles are. Give me a moment, I'll tell you right now. Okay. Okay, there is 133 articles in the Constitution. Now, I'm going to have an episode of reading the articles, but I'm not going to read all 133 of the articles. What I'm going to do is read the first 25 articles. The first 25 articles of the Constitution is the law of succession to the royal house of Ra's throne. So there is a law of succession to the throne. And I'm going to discuss those first 25 articles. Now, once I discuss the first 25 articles, those of you who want to know more about the Constitution and want to know about the other articles, I would have it where I would recommend that you leave a note on the channel's on the message, and let me know that you would like for me to read the other articles. I would not mind doing that. I'll create another episode in doing so. Also, today I'm going to show you a source of my lineage to Ramses III today. Also, I want to discuss a little bit on comedic responsibility. I also want to discuss rules of the channel. I also want to discuss about upcoming episodes. So these are the things I want to talk about in today's introduction. Now I want to mention here that if you would like or recommend certain things that you want to hear, as I've stated before, just leave a comment. I do read comments, but please, if you're going to leave a comment, be civil and use civil discourse. Do not come on there and leave foolishness on the comment section, because if you do, I'm going to put you on blast on the next episode, and I will ban you. Okay, so let's be civil. Let's take it. Now, civil discourse is you don't have to always agree with the other party. Now, you're going to have sometimes you're not going to agree with everything. Okay, and that's not a problem, and that's how it should be. But to have disagreements, you must have a civil discourse. Be respectful. And be able to debate on a civil in a civil way. If you're not on that level of consciousness to do so, then I would not recommend you to even place anything in the comment section. Now, this channel do need your support, and I'm reaching out to those of you in the comedic community and those of you who may not be part of the comedic community but interested in history of Kemet. What I would like for you to do, before I go any further, please like the show, subscribe to the show, and click that notification bell, which would let you know when new episodes would appear. So please remember to do that, and please share the content as well with others. And I thank you ahead of time for your support. Okay, now let me go into showing you my connections with Ramses III. Okay, so I'm going to do this with you right now. All right, now this is a book here. I don't know if you can see it. This is from 23andMe, right? It says the story to your DNA. So this is my DNA. I purchased the book so I can have records and recorded documentation of this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because I also have my maternity DNA examples in this, and my paternity. I did state it. I'm sorry. I do have my paternity breakdown of my DNA, and I also have my maternity as well. But I'm going to talk about my paternity because that is the link to Ramses the third. Okay, through the male line. Okay, now here's what I'm going to show you here. As you can see here it says Paternity Haplogroup. That is my paternity haplogroup. Okay. Now it shows you on how the line is sent. It goes from my great grandfather down to my grandfather, my father, then to myself, the son. Okay. Now let's go here. It shows my paternal haplogroup. It shows where my family in Africa spread to. They were in North Africa, of course. Spread to West Africa. They were in East Africa. Then they went southwards. And then they went outside of Africa. Okay? And then you see here. All right, so let me go to the next page here. All right. Now, here it goes. It shows my link to Ramses the third. And I'm going to let some of you see. Okay. Now, this is a very significance here because this, for a long time, I could never understand when I was a child, why did I had a fascination with monarchy, government, military, economics, science, and also the sports I participated in when I was young. I participated in a lot of combat type of sports. Believe it or not, football is a contact type of sport. I also partaked in, in a neighborhood that I grew up in, we boxed. We used boxing gloves, and we couldn't really afford boxing gloves. So what we would do is that one person have the right hand of the boxing glove, the other person has the left hand of the boxing glove, and we would put one hand behind us, and we would box. And you had to learn how to block, counter, and evade, and duck, weave, and duck and weave, and all that stuff. You had to learn that. So, I was in track and field, but track and field is not a combat sport. But a combat sport I played in. I participated in Olympic style Taekwondo, in which I almost made it to the Olympic team, but I had a sports injury that prevented that. But I also was in high school, I was in the fencing team. And those of you who don't know what fencing is a sport that was originally, I wouldn't say started in Europe because it was in many other parts of the world. Fencing was all over. But this is more of a European style of sword fighting. And gentlemen usually partaked in this, and people in nobility and stuff like that. So I was on the fencing team in my high school, and there was times, there was one incident I almost killed somebody, even though at the tip of the sword they kind of nail it in flat, and then they put like a red tip over it, and then you have a suit that you wear and a mask that you wear. Well, with this one time I did something where they called a lunge. It went underneath the individual's guard, which guards the neck and all that stuff, went underneath and came up. If I would have thrust any further, it would have went inside and killed them. So the sport is very dangerous, but I enjoyed sports like that. I also was I was in the military. I served in the Navy. I was in the Second Iraq War. I was part of a tactical unit called the VBSS, which stands for Visit, Board, Search, and Seizure. And before the war started, our operations were to stop uh, cargo ships, merchant marine ships, some of you may know it as that, that may have been smuggling oil. So we was looking for that. And this is during the time, this was in 2002, 2003. And so this was in 2000. We left port in 2002, December of 2002, and we sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, when you sail across the Atlantic Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean is very rough seas. And we was caught in a storm, and I was on a destroyer. I was on the USS Mitchell DDG 57, which is a destroyer guided missile ship. So we was traveling. Now, when you travel across the Atlantic Sea, we didn't just go across. We went northward and then traveled across to go through the Gibraltar Straits. Now, once you go through the Gibraltar Straits, you're in the Mediterranean. So we was on our Mediterranean course, and that on our Mediterranean tour. And when you go on a Mediterranean tour, it's usually 6 months out at sea. And you do go to ports, you do port. But now I heard the Mediterranean tour is now 8 months now. Woo, these guys are out at sea for that long. But we went through the Gibraltar Straits. When we went through the Gibraltar Straits, we were in the Mediterranean. And my job in the Navy was IS, which is intelligence specialist. So I gathered intelligence and stuff, and you do reports and all that other great stuff. We was in the Mediterranean. We was doing a certain mission there. Then in March of 2003, when the Second Iraq War started, we went into battle formation, and we fired missiles from the Mediterranean into Iraq from that location. Then we were supposed to travel. We went to travel towards the let's see. We had to travel to the Persian Gulf, and so in order to travel to the Persian Gulf from the Mediterranean, we had to cut through the Suez Canal, which is basically cutting through Egypt through a man-made canal. Many ships globally travel through the Suez Canal yearly. Tonnage, I mean millions of tons travel through there, and a lot of money, oil money, and a lot of cargo ships travel through there. And it's that canal is very, is narrow, and you have to have what they would call oh God, I can't remember the name right now. But these guys, their job is to guide ships in. They would navigate for the ships so you don't run aground in the canal, because you can easily run aground there, and that has happened. And they had to dig people out and then tug them out. It's a lot. So it's good that you had tuggers, captain tuggers, to show you how to get through these narrow waterways. And man, you would see so many ships anchored in the Suez Canal, waiting to get a go-ahead to move forward, so they can have a um, a tugboat that would guide them through the boat, that through the canal and navigate. So we went through it, and now remember, there is a a beautiful modern bridge that's connect to mainland Egypt to the Sinai. Now on the Sinai side, when we was traveling through, it was kind of nerve wracking because you have Egyptian soldiers in like you can see tanks there, and it would like point it to the Suez Canal. So even though Egypt is our ally, you never knew if they were gonna fire on us. So and I kid you not, that every person of African descent on that ship, all of us felt that when we went through the Suez Canal. And then when you finally travel through the Suez Canal, then you go into the Red Sea. Before we got to the Red Sea, you can see like on the mainland Egypt, you can see the homes, the palm trees, people walking on the streets, cars moving, and then in the very far reaches, you can see the pyramids. Um, the Sinai is mostly desert. You don't see too much over there on that side. Um, but everyone on that ship, all of us felt that of African descent, like there was a calling, or we have been there before in Egypt. And a lot of us there of African descent, we kept it amongst ourselves. We didn't really talk too much with other crew members who weren't of African descent. And all of us felt that it was like a spiritual awakening. Like I remember I had someone who was in my chain of command. He said he was of African descent. He said, and he was like very Afrocentric, and he said basically that's our ancestors calling us. And for me, when I was going at it, I felt it like everybody else, but I felt it more. I had a vision. I started having visions of a Kemetic king dressed in ancient Kemetic attire and had the crown, the war crown that the pharaohs wore. And he was going in battle, and I can just vision myself in that battle scene. I was there, leading. Or I was part of the leadership, but I was a person of high stature there. I wasn't the regular Joe. And I never discussed it. I only discussed it with one of my friends, and I said, "Oh my God!" And it was a strong vision. But I never really discussed it with others. But as I stated before, when I was very young, I couldn't understand why I was into. My mother didn't understand why I was so much into monarchy and into stuff like that. I always grew up around. I read a lot of books, and I grew up. My grandparents had their own library. We had a library growing up, and even in my own place, I had my own small library. In my library, I got a lot of books on political science, history, economics, military science, investments, business. Excuse me. So that's the things I have: health, exercising, and stuff like that. But and I used to make like little crowns, like crowns of certain monarchies around the world, and I just couldn't understand why I was into it. But now, when I did this DNA test, now I can say, oh, and when I went through, now I can picture everything. I can bring everything to the puzzle because what the DNA shows, I was related to royalty all this time, but never knew it. I felt something, but there was no evidence to prove that until now. But let me share this with you now. Right? I hope you can see that. Says you share an ancient paternal lineage with Pharaoh Ramses III. Uh, Now I'm also going to read this part here. Let's see where I should start from. Okay. All right, I'm going to read this part. Ramses' burial adornment concealed the wounds that marked one of the most famous royal dramas in history. Ramses III's paternal lineage belongs to haplogroup E-V38, from which your line also stems. You and Ramses III share an ancient paternal line ancestor who probably lived in North Africa or Western Asia. So, right there, folks, clearly states that I am his descendant. Also, I just want to share this part of my paternal. I hope you guys can see this. Let's go with this one first. This is the first one. All right. Okay. Now, as I stated before, I'm going to reach out to other descendants of Ramses III and get them to be part of the Royal House of Ra, and then we go on and work within. Then I'll explain to them what I'm trying to do here, and I need support from those from the Kemetic community as well. That would be greatly appreciated. Now I discussed the lineage part with you now, and I also showed you evidence of that. Now let's go into Kemetic responsibility. Those of us who was in the Kemetic community must set a high bar. I noticed in the Kemetic community there has been some distractions. You have those who feel as though that they have the knowledge, that they above approach, and that they're better than others, and you can't tell them anything. That's not the Kemetic way. You must humble yourself and share the knowledge with others and help enlighten others. Okay? And if you don't do that, you're really not Kemetic at all. We need to get back to the Kemetic principles, spirituality, unity, understanding, and the history of Kemet. Teach the right history of Kemet. Now, there's going to be those who's going to see this video and say, well, okay, well, you may be a descendant, so what? Or you may have those who come from, and I'm not here to make war with anyone. That's not the Kemetic way of doing things. But you have those from the Egyptologists who would adamantly fight against what I'm saying. Or they'll say, well, okay, you may be descendant of this or that or that. They continue with their pursuit in whitewashing Kemet and making it look like Egypt. People say, well, they were Egyptians. No, they were Kemetic. It was Kemetians. The country was called Kemet way before it was called Egypt. It was called Egypt because of the Macedonian Greeks who came to Kemet during the time of Alexander III, which conquered Kemet, and that was the start of the Macedonian Greek rule of Kemet. They changed the name from Kemet to Egypt. Alexander was the first king of this new Macedonian Greek dynasty, and I believe his son ruled after him. Then after that, when Alexander died, his generals broke apart his empire and ruled his empire from different parts of the world. And one of his generals, Ptolemy, came to Kemet and ruled Kemet as Egypt pharaoh and created the um, Ptolemaic dynasty, which was the Macedonian Greek dynasty in which Cleopatra come from. Now, some people say, "Oh, Cleopatra was Irish." No, she wasn't. She was a Macedonian Greek, and that was the last dynasty, and it was a foreign dynasty. It wasn't a indigenous dynasty. It was a foreign dynasty. Let's remember that. She was a Greek, and there's images of her being a Greek. She wasn't African. So let's get that established here. And she's not an indigenous individual to that country of Kemet. Now, the current Egyptians that live there, which is the Arabs, they say, "Oh, well, we're the descendants." They are not the descendants because they came over during the Islamic expansion in 636 CE. 633 CE to 646 CE. Okay? They don't even know when they came, but that's historical fact when they came over. So it was the Turkish Arabs who came over and expanded the Islamic faith throughout North Africa. Okay? And that pushed the indigenous further south into Nubia. Okay? So a lot of the royal descents left Kemet and went southward. And that's where some of our ancestors did. Okay? But what I want us to do is, please, let's hold Kemetic standards to a higher level. Let's teach the right history. Let's not, because you got some in the Kemetic community, they may read, but they distort the image of Kemet and create their own reality of Kemet, and they go into more of a cultic like following. We need to get away from that and teach Kemet the way it should be teach. And that's all I have to say about that. We can have a discussion in later episodes regarding that. And I also want to create some episodes where we do have discussions. But if we have discussions, as I stated before, they must be in civil discourse. There will be rules. Now, I'm going to get to that part. Rules of the channel. Respect other members of the channel. Do not call people stupid or idiots. If you can prove your argument, cite your argument. If you ever been to graduated from a university, you would know what you would understand what I'm saying. It's 101 in college. You have to show proof that supports your argument. So you're going to have to cite it. Okay? Where it came from, where you get the information from. What book did it come out from? Who was the author or scholar? The book, the name of the book, and the page in which you cite your information from. That's something that you should do. You need to show proof of evidence. Don't just say something, well, this is what I heard and this is what it is. No, it's not what it is. Show proof of your evidence to support your argument. Also, be respectful to people. Be respectful. Do not call names. I will not tolerate this on this channel. Do not do that. Okay? And I'm going to have it where I will have an open forum where two things I'll do. This is a pre-recorded video that I'm doing now. But you can still leave comments on the video's comment section. But then I'm also going to have live shows where I will be live and people can participate. They can call in and then we can have a discussion from there. What I'll do is that every end of the episode, I'll make an announcement when the next show will appear. And I will also state if the show is going to be either pre-recorded or if it's going to be live. So you would know way in advance when the show starts, the time zone the show would start in. Like tonight's show, the show start 9:20 p.m. Central Time. Eastern Standard Time would be 10:20. Pacific Standard Time it would be 7:20. All right, so that's for tonight, for tonight's show, and so that's something that I'm going to do, and the rules is just basic. If we do a live show and you call in and stuff like that, or if I have a forum in a live show where others will call in and we have a discussion, we're going to practice decorum. Um, each person will have 5 minutes to talk, and within that 5 minutes, no one can interrupt that individual. While that person is talking, you just write down your notes. And if you want to rebuttal, you say after that person is finished, I like to ask for a rebuttal. I'll acknowledge you and allow you to speak for 5 minutes. This is only for live shows. Shows that's pre-recorded, of course you can't do that. But this is what will happen on live show, and we will respect. I will monitor. I would be engaged with the conversation as well, but also there's going to be decorum. We're not going to have people talking over each other. I'm not going to tolerate that. All right, so these are the things I'm thinking about, and also in every end of the episode, like I mentioned at the end of this episode, episode 1, which is today, which is the introduction of the channel. Episode 2 would be of the coat of arms, in which I'm going to show you the coat of arms, and I'm going to break the coat of arms down to you. This is the coat of arms for the Royal House of Ra. Okay? And I'll break it down to you and explain to you about that. And there's also something else I want to discuss with the coat of arms and stuff like that. And that show is going to be live. That will be live, and that will be airing this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. So that's that. Also, that is it. And once again, I am your host, Amen Hotep Khufu El Ra. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's show. And I look forward in all of you joining and supporting the Royal House of Ra channel here on YouTube. And thank you for your support. And please remember to like the video, share the video, subscribe, and hit the notification button so you know when future episodes appear. Once again, thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Take care, and God bless.